Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Nick Jankowski, Chief Operating Officer at Scale Digital Marketing. Hi, Nick. Thank you so much, for doing this with us today. Very happy to
Hello,
have you.
hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Nick, before we start off, I'm so excited to, talk to an SEO like you with so much experience. But, it would be great if you could introduce yourself and, what you do at Scale to our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, I'm Nick Jankowski, the Chief Operating Officer at Scale. Was one of the founders there, and so we're a digital marketing agency, but our specialty, as we like to say it, is really in website creation and website optimization. And so my particular role there, I really focus on the strategy aspect. So one, at the beginning, determining if a client is a right fit. And what services would make sense to give, and what order would we want to do those things in. And then as we bring that client on an ongoing basis, the big thing I'm concerned about is, what's the low-lying fruit? What's the things that we want to do next? And trying to prescribe the right work to do each month so that we can always yield the best results.
Right. From a quality engineer to a marketer, how did that shift happen?
Yeah, you know what? So I got into that just because at the time it just made sense. It was kind of a natural progression of where my work career was taking me. I went to school for mechanical engineering, and the funny thing was, I was like, you know what? I don't think I could do this for a living. But oddly enough, I wound up in a position in a quality department. Went to be a quality engineer, and I worked that job for 7 years, and it just brought no fulfillment to me whatsoever. And it just wasn't who I am.
I think 95% of engineers say that, right? I am a computer engineer from background, right? I started as a computer engineer, worked as a coder in an IT company for 6 months, and that was it.
It was the death of my soul there, and it's like the people were great. The company paid well, all of that, but it just did not fill me, and I like to, I'm technical, but I'm also creative. And there was no creative aspect to it. Right. And everything, it was always about just like fixing things that were problems. So it was always just like reactive. And so, I had, since I was 13 years old, always been into web design and development, got into SEO actually in the early days of SEO, when basically you could just keyword stuff and that counted as doing, SEO. And one of my best friends, Nick, also named Nick, he was getting let go from his job, and they had acquired their former boss was outsourcing some work to them. And he's like, hey, we're kind of like starting this like side job thing where we're doing agency work. Would you want to be involved? And it originally just started off as a side gig. And then all of a sudden we got a couple really big clients, and it was like, wow, I could quit my job. And so I pretty much couldn't quit my job fast enough. But what's cool is that engineering mindset, the idea of being able to look at things and see what needs to be fixed, and kind of use principles, like Lean Six Sigma principles, like DMAIC, like where you evaluate things and you determine how to fix them, how to track whether those things are actually having an impact, and then how to create new work from that. So that whole process is very, very similar in the the web optimization and SEO optimization realm, because you're looking at what is and what isn't working, and you're determining ways to improve it. So it's kind of cool. I don't feel like I threw that part of my life away, but actually I think it made me be a better SEO.
No, I absolutely agree. That engineering mindset, definitely helps. At the end of the day, it is, decoding what is working, what is not, understanding the data right, understanding the numbers right, understanding the algo right. Absolutely right. Absolutely. Nick, as a leader, what do you think has been, your greatest learning from the pandemic?
Yeah. So, the pandemic was definitely a tough spot to be. When we entered into the pandemic, we were actually a team of about 12 people. not to mention, part-time people or contractors that we were working with consistently. And we just had so much overhead. And, we were kind of making ends meet back then. And I knew I needed to make some decisions, some hard decisions, even back then. But I just didn't have the heart to do it. And so once the pandemic hit, it made me realize, okay, now I have to make some real decisions. And I think getting lean was probably the best decision I ever made. Because obviously I got lean in the sense that I reduced overhead, which meant I was actually able to sleep at night. But I didn't just get lean with the employees, we got lean with our services too.
Yeah.
And so we really pared down and we really niched down into the service that we did. Prior to the pandemic, we were much more of kind of like a full service digital marketing agency. And now we only do one, what is profitable, and two, what we're really, really good at. And what we're really, really good at is also what brings me joy. Doing email marketing or doing social media management or doing even some of the, the digital advertising stuff. Like none of that really brought me any joy. It always just felt like this like necessary evil that came with the things that we did enjoy doing. But I just realized I had to have so many people to sustain that. So now we're down to a really nice lean team, and we have repeatable processes and frameworks that we can do over and over again. And it's just so much more sustainable. So that was probably the best thing. I hate to, like, obviously COVID was not a great thing, but I think the pandemic maybe even saved our company in a strange sense.
Yeah, the situation you were talking about, right? I think taking that decision of saying no, like the first time to a client because you're not used to doing it, right? I mean, you're used to taking everything on. I think that is difficult, but once you do that, like with time, you realize, that that's the best thing you had done because now you get to focus on, what you do, and the market is so wide that what you're good at, I mean, it will take time to actually exhaust that 100%. But do that, like well, and like you said, like sleep well at night.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's like I said, I think if there are companies out there that are currently experiencing this feeling of like unsustainability, they don't know how they keep. I think, the best thing you can do is learn how to say no a lot. Like in fact, I think a strength of an entrepreneur is learning how to say no, and you're going to say no 100 times for every one time you say yes. And when you're struggling to put food on the table, sometimes that's a difficult decision. But I think if you can get into a routine of saying no to the things that aren't going to be good for you in the long term, you'll have much more success.
Right. So my follow-up question to that would be, what would you say are the top 3 skills needed to be a successful entrepreneur? I mean, learning to say no, maybe one.
Sure. I might throw that one in there. I would say, so speaking from my own life, that the number one thing, and I guess this is kind of similar, is learning to have balance. I'm a very passionate person. I feel like I get very like ADHD sometimes where like, I'm just like fixed on things. And I would say learning to have balance. I've got a wife and 2 kids. And I've got other things, other responsibilities in my life. So learning how to turn off work, I think is huge. Learning to be present with the people that you're with and not always be on your phone thinking about work. Like you have to set, and those work hours can be whatever they want. If you want to work on Saturdays, if you want to work nights, that's fine. But I think you have to have hours where you say, okay, these hours are sacred and I'm not going to let work enter into these spaces, because at some point when all the joy and the excitement and the all that stuff goes away, you'll realize it's all you have, and you've got, and it's just, it owns you. So I think learning to have balance is probably the first one I would say. I think another one is learning how to delegate. Obviously, if you're working as a solo entrepreneur, there's not really much to delegate. But I think 2 things here is that I've made mistakes on is, the first is I've always tried, doing things myself, maybe because it was faster or easier. So learning to not do everything myself, like things like work instructions, whether they be written or video work instructions, like training people to actually do things so that I don't always have to do them in the future, taking an extra 20% of the time to get someone else to understand how to do it so that the next time they can do it, 100%. I think it was John Maxwell that said, if somebody can do something 80% as good as you, then you should give it to them. And I totally agree with that. So learning how to delegate, but also learning how to delegate correctly. Like, don't just give somebody something. You have to actually, take the time to train them properly, establish expectations. And I think that is going to lead to long-term success.
Yeah, I think, like I said, like with training, like making proper processes from day one, right? A lot of
Yes.
entrepreneurs, often do this mistake that they don't even, think of processes and SOPs till the
Right.
time something is, not properly working, right? And then,
Correct.
comes a time when you kind of go back to, point one and then try making processes and, like training people. Processes can always be improved, but I think, making them from day one is very important.
Absolutely. And I know that's a mistake of a lot of entrepreneurs that I've met, where they're just kind of like reinventing the wheel every single time they do something. And I think, again, going back to what we talked about, like if you can pare down what you do, it's going to become a lot easier to, standardize and make into a formal process what you do. So
Yeah.
I would say that is huge. And that's been awesome. We use like Loom internally. We do Loom videos of us doing things, and that has been just a lifesaver. You don't have to spend hours figuring out how to perfectly bullet point what you want to say. You just literally do it, and you
Yeah.
record yourself doing it, and then it's done. So
we use Vidyard, and
okay.
the habit has become so much. My team was telling me last week that, have you ever realized that how many emails you're actually writing now? Because even to your clients now, you're just sending Vidyard videos. I said, well, it's easy, it's fun, it's interactive, but it also, kind of is more effective.
Absolutely. It's better in every single way. It saves you time, and especially, like for emails, voice inflections and a smiling face. Text is just so harsh sometimes,
Yeah.
so it's amazing how much time those things save. So that's awesome.
Yep, yep. I mean, so there was an instance. Again, I did not do it deliberately, but it worked. It was just because of habit. So we had a case where, like we had some like a long weekend in India, and there had been a miss from a teammate. And normally in an email, you would say, okay, fine, we apologize or whatever, but it'll be done today. And the guy forgot to tell you about the holiday and stuff. I just made a video and sent it out. And, I mean, the reply that came back to me was such, something that could have been an escalation,
Sure.
actually, kind of because of that video and, your voice and your interaction kind of, saved the day for us. So absolutely right.
That's awesome. Yeah, huge win. It's relatively inexpensive, so I would definitely recommend anybody do that that's not doing it yet.
Right. So Nick, how does a typical day of, Nick Jankowski look like?
Is there even such thing as a typical day? I feel like every day is a little. Actually, I have started getting into a habit of blocking out like hours of my day for things. I've been doing this for probably like a year
So,
now.
so, so before you answer that, the reason I asked you this question is because when you said that when we're talking about the skills required for an entrepreneur, and when you said like what hit me was like when you're with somebody, being in that moment and not looking at your phone. I think
Yes.
that is something which most of us do, right? We don't enjoy the moment, so that's why I wanted to understand like what you're doing in a typical day to kind of.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, my day is a lot of meetings, honestly, but a lot of internal meetings and a lot of external meetings. And that can be fairly draining. So I do try to make sure I block out times. Like the couple things I try to do consistently, like reading, try to give myself usually 45 minutes to an hour to read. I block out my lunch. I take an hour for lunch every day, which is something early on as an entrepreneur I never did. And those are like the necessary moments for me to recharge from the meetings, because when I'm in meetings, I just pour myself out, right? I give 110%, and I'm using every last molecule in my brain. So I need those types of moments to be able to do that. But when I'm not in the meetings, a big part of what I'm doing is focusing on improving our processes. So I spend a lot of time, using things like Zapier,
Yeah.
in our Monday or in our CRM or whatever. And I'm always trying to create new automations, try to just like streamline or simplify things. That is a big part of what I do. And once 5 o'clock hits, I've made a habit now. I cut it off, and I'm upstairs, because we work at home now. That was another big change from the pandemic. But I'm cooking dinner for the family, and usually the rest of the evening is, time to just hang out with them. So it's again, it's just another one of those things that, I know that I need to be able to refresh and start again. And remembering that, everything I do Monday through Friday, usually between like 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. I do that, for my family. So that's kind of the reward at the end of the day, is actually getting to like go upstairs, and, my wife, who gets to stay home with the kids, and playing with the kids. That's kind of like the reward for the work that I do.
I understand. How do you plan to grow from here? What does the strategy look like?
Yeah, so we've been in the process of doing a few things lately, and one of the biggest ones, honestly, and it seems like so obvious, or maybe for other people it seems so taboo, but the first one is just charging what we're worth. We for a long time did not charge what we were worth, and we so far below honestly what we could charge. And so we've been actually slowly in a process, as we get a new client, we're basically increasing our price until we eventually get to the price that we're actually shooting for. We've realized you don't always need to take on more clients to make more money, and so the big thing is to find the clients that really value what you do at the price that you think you can do it, and doing that. So we've been slowly in that process, and we're slowly moving all of our current clients who are kind of grandfathered into that new pricing structure. And so that has been the first one. And I think probably part and parcel to that has been continuing down this vein of what we're doing, but we're really working on decommoditizing ourselves. So getting to a place, obviously SEO is a commodity, right? And so people are going to go as uninformed buyers. They're going to go to my website, and they're going to go to 20 other agency websites, and they're going to just compare us on price. And so we are kind of in the process of doing some things that are proprietary to us. We're building some of those things out, and establishing our service offerings as more of a product that is a little less line items and a little less negotiable, and a little bit more like, hey, this is a framework that we know works. And this is what we're selling. And we're the only ones selling this thing. That way we kind of stand out as our own thing. And so when people are comparing it, they're not comparing apples to apples. They're now comparing apples to oranges. And it gives them just a little bit more room to think. So it's nothing that's like mind blowing, but for us, those are, I think, our core essentials to our business that are enabling us to. So we're almost kind of like growing internally, and in turn, that's helping us grow out.
Right, right. Tell us your favorite client story.
So I've got a lot of really cool client stories. One thing I'll preface this with saying is that we, unlike a lot of agencies, we don't work with like contracts. So like we don't make clients sign a 1-year contract to work with us. We really believe in proving ourselves with our work. And so one client in particular that I'm thinking of, we've now been working with for 6 years. And they're in the, so they work in kind of industrial manufacturing type settings. They go into those places, and they help with like injury prevention and like ergonomic assessments. And they do this stuff. Basically, they're helping do basically preventive maintenance on the people. So keeping them healthy. And if they do get injured, helping them recover faster. So it's, very big ticket item. only, companies with 150, 200 plus people are going to even be able to consider a solution like that. And when we first started working with them, they had basically no web presence. I mean, not their logo was basically just written word. I mean, their website was just abysmal. It was not mobile responsive, and they were getting literally 1 to 300 people per month to their site. And so now, over the course of the 6 years that we've been working with them, we've helped them redo their branding. We're actually in the process of doing a new redesign, because kind of every 3-4 years, it's time for another refresh. So we're kind of creating a new look for their website now. But we have been doing a ton of SEO for them. And, we've been averaging like 6 blogs a month, doing absolutely backlinking, all these awesome things. And they are consistently getting anywhere from like 12 to 20,000 people to their site every single month now. So it's, and when you look at their, their traffic breakdown, 80-something% of their traffic on a regular basis is from search. So that is just one I'm really, really proud of. And I think that, and you can kind of see that hockey stick effect of their growth taking place. And I think that is kind of like the quintessential example of what SEO can do for you. That's like true sustainable traffic. Like, they don't pay a dime for anything. They don't do any paid advertising with us or with anybody else. Pretty much they're doing a little bit on social. They've got some people coming directly, maybe because they saw them at a trade show, but basically their growth can be attributed to doing SEO well. And so that's something we're really, really proud of.
Right. You're talking about SEO again. I know, you don't have like prescription that you can give to everybody, but as a company, as a process, what does your SEO process look like?
Yeah. Well, so the first thing that we do is we have a discovery call with people. If you were to go to our website, that's really the call to action, is let's have a discovery call. And the reason we like to have that call is because, honestly, we want to find out if SEO even makes sense for you. And just to clarify, I obviously believe that SEO does make sense for everybody at some point.
Yeah.
But we recognize some people, maybe they've got limited cash. They need to see results right away. And admittedly, at least from where we've seen, SEO is not the thing where you turn it on and you see results the next day. Generally, in our experience, you're looking at a time frame of maybe 3 to 6 months to really start seeing the results come in a way that's actually going to yield anything tangible. And so for us, we evaluate, does it even make sense right now? Or would they be better off maybe going and doing some paid advertisements, because they're going to instantly show up in front of their target audience, assuming they know who their target audience is. And they're going to be able to start driving some of that traffic. So that's the first thing. And then also determining, what do we need to do first? If we did focus on doing content and backlinking and all of that, do they have a site that clearly speaks to their target audience, that conveys their value propositions, their, who they do, what they do, who they do it for, all of that. And in a lot of cases, clients don't really have that. So generally, we like to start off doing, maybe some like UI UX improvements or some copywriting, just to get things to like a good baseline. But so from that discovery call, if they come on after having a proposal, we onboard them, obviously. And then month 1 is usually kind of the key setup thing. So we'll do an audit. We'll make sure the analytics are set up correctly. Sometimes we'll even set up some additional analytics like Hotjar or something like that. And establishing baseline, because that's really the big thing. A lot of times our clients are under this impression that they're doing so well in certain areas. And so we just like to establish like formal baselines of where are they ranking for particular keywords? What is their organic traffic? What's their bounce rate? What are their typical, search end result impressions, things like that. So just kind of understanding where they're at. And then generally months 1 to 3 is spent doing a lot of like technical site work or UI UX improvements. And so this might be trying to make their site load faster, or, fix, maybe pages are missing H1 titles, or, whatever it may be. We're generally fixing a lot of that stuff. And then usually months 3+ is where we get into building out content. And so that can be anything from like blogs, white papers, infographics, even videos, but generally blogs. And then link building. And for us, we focus obviously on backlinking, which is probably the highest priority type of links, but we're also thinking about like internal linking of the site, as well as linking out to other people, because we know those are factors that people are concerned about. So once we kind of get into that 3-month range, it's pretty standard that we know we're basically focusing on content and link building. Oop, did I lose you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry for that.
Okay, I think we froze.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know if basically saying I don't know if everyone lost me or if it was just you. So months 1 to 3 is usually focused on the technical work, kind of fixing all those core issues, and then usually months 3+ is focused on basically creation of content and building out link profiles.
Right. When you're doing a keyword research, how do you calculate the value for different search queries, like an exact match keyword versus a long tail keyword?
Sure. Yeah, and this is not an exact science, and I think it's a little different from each client. Generally, before we even start doing keyword research, we'll actually ask them what types of keywords or phrases matter to them. And so obviously they've got their own branded keywords that are kind of unique or proprietary to them, and then they've got the industry keywords that they're kind of concerned about, and then sometimes even competitor keywords. But generally they'll give us anywhere between 5 and 20 keywords or phrases that are important to them, and that helps us understand like what's the vernacular that this particular company is concerned about, because there's a lot of different ways that you can talk about things. There might be multiple terms that are, pointing to ultimately the same product, but we kind of really want to understand, how do you think about it? How do you talk about it? And then from there, we'll kind of go and we'll do a bunch of keyword research, and we try to have a blend of both the exact, the big head comet type keywords and the long tails, because obviously the shorter the keywords, generally the harder they are going to be to rank for, because there's just a lot more competition on them. So we really believe in having a blend of both. And then generally what we'll do is we'll do keyword grouping and then keyword mapping. So we'll group tons of similar keywords together, because honestly at this point Google is more concerned about context than just content itself. So they really are evaluating, and they can understand if there are synonyms or if things are contextually the same. So for us, we'll group those things together, and then we map those things out over multiple pages, because obviously contrary to popular belief, you're not just trying to get your homepage to rank for every single keyword. So really figuring out which keywords belong on which pages, and that really helps simplify the way we think about things. It's an easy way to distill down 150 to 200 keywords into really small bite-sized chunks, and then we usually do experimentation from there to figure out which words we're going to have the best success with.
No, absolutely. I think also, one thing a lot of people, miss is, at the end of the day, it is not only about looking at the keywords, the importance and the volume, right? You also have to look at, okay, fine, at the end of the day, conversion is going to happen if you are in the top 10, because, maximum CTR is there. But then, like, what are you competing against? Sometimes, for some keywords, the top 5 positions will be like, let's say Amazon, let's say Wiki or whatever, right? You might have a lot of long tail for that particular service or page, where you can at least for 3 of those long tail you can actually rank in the top 3 positions. Absolutely. So it definitely makes sense to focus on them and actually get the clients some conversions.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously sometimes this comes with setting proper expectations with the client up front. They're only thinking about those couple big keywords, but just setting the proper expectations, like, hey, over time, these are certainly keywords that we could start to rank for. And so we're going to keep them on the list and kind of track, right now you're not ranking for it at all. So for us, showing up from 0 page to page 3 is a huge win. However, that win isn't going to get you anywhere. So that's kind of like a long-term strategy, and the long tail variants are more of the short-term or interim term strategy, which actually gets you some initial results.
Right. Well, Nick, we are short on time, but I'll not let you go, without asking, my favorite question. Like a question on link buildings. How have you seen link building change over the years?
That's a good question. So I would say probably the biggest change for us has been in the difficulty of finding the opportunities. You can reach out to literally hundreds of people, and a lot of people just don't get back to you. The other thing is people are understanding the value of an actual like follow backlink, like a do follow backlink. And so, people are starting to charge for those things. And so I think understanding that there's kind of a pay to play aspect to link building now is important. That good quality backlinks are both going to take time to establish, and probably are going to cost something. So,
Absolutely.
nothing good is free.
No,
And I think
absolutely.
that's the biggest thing.
Right, right. Well, Nick, like I like playing a quick rapid fire in the end. So a quick
Okay.
rapid fire of three questions. I mean, play it well, just answer whatever comes to your mind, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, so we start. Your favorite superhero,
I'm gonna have to just go with Superman. I feel like he's iconic.
favorite day of the week.
Day of the week. Um, I'm gonna be lying if I didn't say something other than Friday, because it's just now I get to look forward to the weekend.
Right, so today is your favorite day.
Absolutely.
If a movie was made on you, what genre would it be?
Ooh. I think in my mind it would be an action movie, but I think in real life it's probably some like weird, like melancholy, independent film that has like no no real climax, and it just kind of ends. That I think that's the real life version of me. I'm
Well,
very
Nick,
boring outside of work. I just
but I couldn't see that. I mean, I had fun with you, like chatting with you, and I mean, I look forward to kind of bonding with you more and talking to you more.
Yeah, thank you. I had a great time as well. It was awesome.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for your time today. It was fun having you.
Absolutely, it was a blast being here.